You know that feeling when you're stuck on hold with some massive corporation or you're filling out endless, mind numbing bureaucratic forms, and you just get this overwhelming sense of alienation? Like you aren't even a human being anymore. You're just a data point in this cold, massive machine. Well, welcome to this explainer where we're going to see that this feeling isn't just you being cynical, it's actually the symptom of a massive structural shift in how human society operates. Today, we're digging into one of the absolute most ambitious works of late 20th century social theory to understand exactly why we feel this way. We are talking about Jürgen Habermas's The Theory of Communicative Action. Honestly, it's incredibly validating to know that the frustration you might feel right now, that sense of modern life just being this massive, soulless transaction, was actually diagnosed decades ago. Jürgen Habermas published this massive two-volume masterpiece back in 1981, and he was basically acting as an intellectual detective trying to solve a huge crisis of confidence in modern reason. He looked around and saw that the whole Enlightenment promise, the idea that human reason was supposed to eventually lead to our ultimate liberation, well, it seemed to be failing. Early critical theorists were arguing that our obsession with scientific, technological, and bureaucratic efficiency had actually resulted in people being subjugated. Habermas wanted to figure out how can we rescue human reason from just becoming another tool of domination. Part 1. The Crisis of Modern Reason. Rethinking the Enlightenment. To really grasp Habermas's breakthrough, we first have to understand the pessimistic view he was fighting against. Thinkers like Max Weber looked at how society was modernizing and warned that we were essentially building an iron cage of calculating efficiency, completely stripping the world of personal meaning. Now, Habermas realized these earlier theorists were stuck in a bit of a trap. They were operating under what's called the philosophy of consciousness. Think of it as a subject-object paradigm, just an isolated mind trying to manipulate an objective world. When you apply that to society, it reduces human interaction to pure strategic calculations. It treats other people as complex objects to be manipulated for our own private goals. But Habermas introduces this brilliant paradigm shift. He brings in the philosophy of language. He argues that, actually, scratch that, true reason isn't just about an isolated mind manipulating objects for success. It's about subjects using language to cooperate. Language isn't just a tool to bark orders or convey raw data. It is intrinsically designed to help us reach mutual understanding. Part 2. The Power of Communicative Action. How we reach understanding. So, Habermas splits human action into two distinct orientations. First, there's action oriented towards success. This is treating life like a strategic game you need to win, either by calculating utility or dangling incentives. But then there's communicative action, where we coordinate our plans not through egocentric, selfish calculations, but through shared, rationally motivated agreement. For Habermas, this communicative action is the fundamental default mode of using language. Now, to prove that everyday communication is inherently rational, he argues that every single time a competent speaker says something to reach an understanding, they are implicitly making three validity claims that correspond to three different dimensions of reality. The first one is truth, which relates to the objective world. This is simply the claim that what you're saying is factually correct. So, for example, if I say to you, the train departs at 8 p.m., I'm making a claim about objective reality that you can either verify or falsify. Simple enough, right? Now, what's really interesting about this is that Habermas absolutely doesn't stop at just objective facts. The second validity claim is rightness, and this corresponds to the social world. This is the claim that whatever you're saying is normatively appropriate and justifiable within our shared cultural context. Think about it. When someone says, hey, you shouldn't steal, or please turn down your music, it's way too late, they aren't just stating a physical fact about the universe. They are grounding their statement in shared social norms and moral rules. We evaluate that statement based on whether the command or the expectation is morally or socially justified. And the third and final validity claim is sincerity, which corresponds to the subjective world. This is the claim that your internal thoughts, feelings, and intentions actually match what you're outwardly expressing. If I look at you and say, I am deeply sorry for arriving late, you evaluate that based on my future actions and my attitude, like, do I actually mean it? Together, these three things, truth, rightness, and sincerity, they form the absolute foundation of our communication. When one of these claims is challenged, normal communication breaks down, and we have to enter into a reflective discourse to hash it out. And Habermas argues that to reach a genuine rational consensus, we have to strive for what he famously calls the ideal speech situation. This is a setting completely free from coercion, where everyone has an equal chance to participate, and literally nothing wins except the unforced force of the better argument.
Part 3. Lifeworld versus the system. The dual model of society.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we move from everyday conversations to the structure of society itself. Zooming out to the macro level, Habermas builds this dual perspective model to explain how massive groups of human beings coordinate their lives. On one hand, we have the life world. This is society viewed from the inside. It's our shared personal space of culture, society, and personality, and it relies entirely on communicative consensus to survive. I mean, you can't just buy a stable personality, right? Or force a genuine cultural tradition from the top down. They have to be nurtured organically through communication. Conversely, we have the system, which is society viewed from the outside. Because we obviously can't negotiate every single interaction face-to-face in a massive globalized society, the system coordinates action through non-linguistic steering media, specifically money in the economy and power in the state bureaucracy. Market actors don't need to sit down for a moral debate about resource distribution. They just respond to prices. The system runs automatically.
Part 4. Colonizing the life world, when money and power take over.
So the crucial point is that having a separate life world and system is not inherently a bad thing. You can't run a global supply chain on local town hall debates alone. It just wouldn't work. But Habermas diagnoses exactly what goes wrong in modern society through a process he calls the colonization of the life world. Here is the mechanics of how it happens. Step 1, the system and life world uncouple. The market and state separate from traditional communities. That's fine. But in step 2, the systemic steering media, money and power, they spill over their boundaries. They violently intrude into areas of the life world that fundamentally depend on human connection, like the family, education, and community life. Finally, in step 3, monetization and bureaucratization actually replace communication entirely. Social relations get redefined as just market transactions, education gets treated solely as an investment in human capital rather than a space for personal development. Family disputes or community crises, they get instantly outsourced to legalistic, bureaucratic administrations that treat individuals like clients rather than human beings needing support. And this systemic infiltration is the direct cause of our modern anxieties. Because money and power absolutely cannot generate meaning or solidarity, their encroachment produces severe social pathologies. We see a massive loss of meaning and anime as our shared traditions are monetized. We see an erosion of social solidarity, leading to deep isolation because community relationships are being replaced by commercial transactions or administrative services. We see psychological and identity crises, especially in younger generations, because the socialization process in families and schools is so strained. And we see the depoliticization of the public sphere. Citizens are reduced to passive consumers of political spectacle rather than active participants in a vibrant debate. This colonization is exactly why modern life feels so alienating to so many of us.
Part 5. Critiques and democratic solutions. Where do we go from here? But Habermas didn't just want to diagnose the problem and leave us feeling depressed. He wanted to push back. His whole theory is ultimately a defense of the modern project, basically arguing that we just have an unbalanced rationalization that is prioritizing efficiency over human communication. His democratic solution is rooted in what he calls discourse ethics. He insists that moral and political laws cannot just be handed down from above. Morality isn't about an isolated person sitting in a room asking themselves what's right. It requires us to enter into actual dialogue with real others. According to discourse ethics, a moral norm or political decision is only valid if we can collectively agree to it in open, equal discourse. Power only maintains its legitimacy if it is continuously informed by transparent, open public debates that are entirely free from administrative coercion and economic distortion. We have to reclaim the public sphere.
Now, of course, a theory this massive naturally sparked some incredibly vigorous debate, and it's really important to look at the major critiques impartially. Post-structuralists, like Michel Foucault, for instance, argued that the whole idea of a coercion-free dialogue is an illusion from the start, because power is inherently woven into all language and knowledge. Feminist theorists, like Nancy Fraser, pointed out a significant blind spot. Habermas kind of treated the family as this pristine, communicative space in the life world, completely overlooking that the family is historically a site of immense power dynamics, inequality, and uncompensated economic labor. And then systems theorists like Nicholas Luhmann argued that modern society is simply way too complex to be coordinated by moral consensus. Expecting highly specialized global systems to respond to general moral discourse, they argue, is just functionally impossible. But despite all those debates, Habermas's framework remains an incredibly powerful diagnostic tool for understanding the modern human condition. He showed us that reason isn't just a spreadsheet calculating efficiency, it is the fundamental human drive to understand one another. By showing us the dividing line between the life world and the system, he gave us the vocabulary to articulate exactly why things feel so broken when bureaucracy and money invade our personal lives. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on in your own life. Look around at your community, your education, your family, and your relationships. Where have you allowed the calculation of money and power to replace genuine human connection? Where has the system colonized your own life world?
Please like and subscribe.